So how did you start your Coppersmith journey?
Well, I started out as a blacksmith before I became a coppersmith, and after about 5 years of being a blacksmith, one of my friends who actually taught me most of my blacksmithing, I wanted to start doing shows with him, and so I couldn't do the same thing he was doing because A, he was better than me, and B, I didn't want to compete against him. So I got over into copper so we could set up next to each other and help at craft shows, help each other, and I wasn't competing against him and he wasn't competing against me. And so that's how I really got into it, but I really enjoy the way copper works and enjoy how it behaves. And so that's the reason I became a coppersmith.
And what was your friend's name that you worked with?
Gavin Harris, he was my master. When I first started, we have a club in Alabama called the Alabama Ford Council, and it meets the second Sunday of the month, every month. And when I first started going, I realized he would teach me anything I wanted to know as long as the beer was cold and plentiful. And so I paid for my blacksmithing lessons, a case of beer at a time, every month. And so that's how I learned blacksmithing. And that all applies to whatever you learn blacksmithing applies to coppersmithing. I have an advantage over most coppersmiths is because I am a blacksmith. If I can think it up, I can make it in terms of tools or an idea. Because I'm a blacksmith. So I can make any hammers and chisels that I need. But what's really interesting is I really got into blacksmithing to make knives. And this was in the early 80s. And in the 40 years since, I've only made one knife. And that was actually a knife that I needed because I broke my arm and didn't know I broke my arm for 6 months and kept swinging the hammer with a broke arm. I'm a little squirrely that way. And so a couple of days before I went in for surgery, I said, how am I going to eat if my right hand is tied up? And so I made a one-armed man's knife so I could eat my steak without slowing down. And that's what I did. Right, a couple of days before I went in for surgery, I sat down and made me a knife, and I carried it with me everywhere. And I could eat with the best of them.
Nice.
So that's the only knife I've actually made.
So what is the creative process? I know we were getting into it a little bit with the bowls.
Yeah, well, the bowls, you start off with a flat disc and you raise it, and it's a laborious process, but it's the only way to get him into shapes that these types of shapes. You have to hammer on a ball stake, and you hammer and hammer and hammer. Generally, I try to do 4 to 6 pieces at a time because you hammer for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but then you have to anneal the pieces, in other words, heat them up and make them soft again, because as you've hammered on them, they work harder, and so they'll stop moving, and so you have to go out and run a torch on it, get it up to about 1,500 degrees, and then throw it in a bucket of water and quench it, and that makes it dead soft. And so what I'll do is I'll have 3 that's being, also after you heat it up, you have to put it in a cleaner called a pickle and get all the scale off. So you need to leave those sitting in a pickle for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll hammer 3, and then 3 more sitting in a pickle waiting on me. And so then when I finish hammering those 3, I get up and go get the ones out of the pickle, and I nail the other ones, and that way it's a process that you can keep working on instead of sitting around twiddling your thumbs all the time.
Okay. And what about this, the vases?
The vases, there, what I'm doing here is I'll design an image, and I'll
And do you print those yourself, or do you get them?
Yeah, some of them I'll find images on the internet and images and things, and then I'll make them my own by tweaking them and doing things. You have to get an eye for what's going to work on a base and what's not going to work. Some images just won't translate, and so you have to get you an eye for what will and won't translate. And so that's part of what I've been successful at, is finding images that will chase, and then once I'll find an image, then I'll glue it down to the cylinder, and then I'll chase through the paper into the copper. That puts the image where I want it, and I'll peel the paper off and come back in with different hammers and chisels to make the texture around to make it show up like I want it.
Okay.
Once you get the image in, you just have part way done. That's the fun part, but different textures to make it show up and behave what you want. So this is some 3 dogwoods here, so I'm working on. And once I get it all chased out, then I'll come around the outside and put texture on it.
Okay. Okay.
And I have to check each one to make sure that they're soldered so they won't leak. After you solder a bottom on, I'll set them gently down in a bucket of water and see if they leak. If they leak, I have to fix it, but I've been doing it long enough that it's rare that they leak.
All right. So what inspired your newest body of work?
Well, I've always been interested in raising, and right before COVID hit, a friend of mine gave me a 2-day lesson. I went up to his shop and he showed me the basics of how to raise. And there is another artist that does similar work, and he's real good about showing a step-by-step process. And so I was able, during the COVID, while I was stuck at home a lot, I found his information, and so he did a 27-step pictorial of what he does, and so I followed that, and along the way, about halfway through, he had a picture of him holding one of his vessels, but it had a picture of his thumb in it, and so I could use that as scale, because I couldn't, you can't, you're just taking pictures of these, you can't tell how big they are, and so I was able to use his thumb as scale, and once I saw that, compare my thumb to his thumb in the base, I realized that I was on the right track.
Okay.
So essentially self-taught. I used his. These shapes were actually around in the arts and craft period from about 1900 to 1930. I found a lot of examples. Once I learned how to do it, you start realizing what pieces are and how they were made 100 years ago, and that's what he's been doing. So I'd like to take a class from him one day, but he mostly teaches out in Arizona, and my old truck won't make that.
Okay.
But I don't have any candlesticks with me. I was hoping to get some made, but I might bring a set. I've got a couple sets that I'm fixing to go teach a class up in North Tennessee.
Okay.
And hopefully I'll work in the 3 pieces that I didn't get finished to bring here today. Swing them back by on the way home from North Tennessee next Saturday.
Okay.
If she wants any of those either, so I think that's the case.
do you get the gold on the inside? What's the process
It's,
as far as that?
it's a gold leaf, and so what you do is you put a size or an adhesive in on it first, and there's two different types of adhesive. One has a 12-hour set, so that you paint it on the inside, then you wait 12 hours for it to tack over, and then you have 12 hours to put the gold in. And you just put it in, lay the real thin sheets, and the gold goes everywhere, and you really can't have a fan on because it blows all your gold away. And then they have another one that's a 1.5 hour set, and that works good too. But both of them. But it's a gold. This particular gold is double thickness gold, which it's not really double thickness, but it's heavier than the regular gold leaf, and this looks better, looks deeper and richer.
Yeah.
So I like that better. Not cheap, but it's not awful. 500 sheets, I think, cost $1,000.
Yeah.
And that gets your attention anyway. Don't get about too many of those books, but they last a while.
Norman, you got any questions? Nothing? All right. Well, I will